Hi, third graders. Can you believe that we are on our third Wednesday of reading together? I don't know where the time goes. So let's talk about our essential question. Our essential question is, how do people from different cultures contribute to a community? We want to think about that question today because we're going to be thinking about our strategy. I can ask and answer questions. So here, right here, is a great focus question that we're going to look for the answer to. And we're going to look for this answer using this I can statement. I can identify the sequence of events in a text. So these two objectives will help us to meet the purpose of answering this question. Let's click on our Wednesday and Thursday. All right, this slide again helps us to focus our brain on our essential question. How do people from different cultures contribute or give back to a community? Our strategy is I can ask and answer questions. So we're asking that essential question. We're going to find the answer. And our skill is I can identify the sequence of events in a text. Sequence is a big fancy word for order. Click on the skill and strategy. Here are our two objectives. And here is our purpose, reading to answer this essential question. Here's our to-do. You're going to watch this mini lesson. You will then read and record your guided reading text, Judy Baca. You will have today and tomorrow, Wednesday and Thursday. You will then, between today and tomorrow, complete workbook page Wednesday and Thursday sequencing on your Reading Wonders backpack. How do I identify the sequence of events? Well, we think about the order in which important events take place. So first, something happens, then something happens. Sometimes in a text, we can look for what we call signal words, such as first, next, then, and finally. These words might signal to us that an important event is taking place in order in the text. So thinking about our I can statement, I can ask and answer questions. We're going to think about the essential question. We're going to ask, how do people from different cultures contribute to a community? And as we're looking for the answer, we will be identifying the sequence of events in this text. We are going to read the story Room to Grow. It is a narrative nonfiction, meaning it's a true story about a real person. This specific narrative nonfiction is an autobiography written by the narrator. So the author and the person telling the story are the same person. While we're reading, as we are meeting our objective, answering the essential question and identifying the sequence of events, we will then record our thinking on our graphic organizer. We have already read this text with the purpose of identifying features of the genre. We have gone back into this text to identify compound words and their meaning. And now, at this point, we are going to look at asking and answering questions and identifying the sequence or the order of events. Let's get started. Room to grow. How do people from different cultures contribute to a community? This heading right here is that feature of this nonfiction narrative that we already identified as important, Spring in the City. Well, that tells me that something's going to happen with this family right here during the springtime in a city. And I see this caption says, our new home in Portland. So I'm already thinking that in the beginning of this narrative nonfiction, this family moved to Portland, Oregon in the spring. I'm making predictions. Now I want to ask myself, how does this family contribute to their community? Well, I see in this picture here that they're growing plants. Maybe they help plant a garden in their community. I want to find that answer. My name is Kiku Sato. Last spring, my family and I moved from the country to the big city. Okay, there's a word that tells me time, spring. It's a season, it's an order of events in our seasons. So I am going to highlight last spring because that is an important sequence. That signals to me that this might be an important event that took place in the beginning of this narrative. Last spring, my family and I moved from the country to the big city. What is the big city? There's a question that I have. Let's find the answer. Our new home in Portland. I just answered my question. So I now know that Kiku Sato moved with her family to Portland, Oregon last spring. It had no yard. There wasn't even a tiny plot of land. So Mama made an indoor garden. First, she and Papa planted seeds in pots. There's another sequence word that signals to me that this might be an important event in this text. First, she and Papa planted seeds in pots. Then they hung them from hooks. There's another sequence word that signals to me that this might be an important event. Next, they crammed plants onto shelves. That word next signals to me to stop and think as a reader, this might be an important event. Green vines tumbled over desks. Soon our house had plants everywhere. All right, I'm going to pause here and see if I can meet any of my objectives. I was asking the question, how do people from different cultures contribute to a community? And I noticed that Kiku Sato and her family moved to a new city. So they are coming from a different culture and they're moving to a different community. So we have some clues that are connecting to that essential question. We also have our character and what happened in the beginning of the text. So we're going to record that using our signal words and our character's name. Notice our signal word. Last spring, and here's our character's name, Kiku Sato and her family moved to the city of Portland, Oregon. They had no yard, so they made an indoor garden. I know as a reader that the indoor garden was an important event because the author used these signal words. First, she and Papa planted seeds in pots. Then they hung them from hooks. Next, they crammed plants onto shelves. Soon our house had plants everywhere. The author is showing me this is important in the beginning of this narrative. Also, it connects to spring in the city. During the season of spring, they're planting plants and they're in the city, so they don't have much yard, and they're doing it inside of their house. I'm thinking that Kiku Sato's family planting is going to connect to how they contribute to their community. Let's read on. At first, I was scared to start school. I was afraid no one would be my friend. But I soon met a classmate, Jill Hernandez. And I soon met a classmate. Jill Hernandez and I were practicing reading aloud one day. She helped me say her last name, and I helped her pronounce mine. The next day, we were best friends. Jill spent lots of time at my house. Here's a new heading. This also signals to me that there is going to be an order of events. So first, Kikusato's family moved in the spring to the city. Now the next heading says an idea for a garden. So after they moved, they must have got an idea to create a garden. One afternoon, Jill and her mother came to visit Mama and Papa and me. First, they saw our beautiful potted plants. There's another signal word for a sequence. First, that's telling me this might be an important event in the order or sequence of the text. Jill's mother said, "Jill admires your indoor garden. She has told me so much about it." So right here, I know that the next important event that took place in this story is that Jill and her mother went to Kikusato's house and admired their indoor garden. That also connects to this heading, an idea for a garden. We all sat down while Mama served tea. First, she put green tea into the tea bowl. There's that sequence word again. First. This green tea must connect to the idea of the garden or how Kikusato's family knows how to plant a garden. Let's read on and find the connection. Then she added hot water and stirred. She handed the bowl to Jill's mother and bowed. Here's a picture with a caption or a label that says Mama's Special Tea Bowls. "My mother taught me how to make tea," said Mama. "She also taught me how to plant a traditional Japanese garden. I learned to make the most of a small, compact space." If I go back to my question, how do people from different cultures contribute to a community? Well, that question, different cultures, right here, I see traditional Japanese garden. That tells me that this is an idea from a different culture. And that connects to this heading, an idea for a garden. All of a sudden, Jill's mother smiled. "Can you help us with a project?" she asked. "Our community wants to plant a garden. Our plot is very small. There is so much we want to grow." Papa looked at Mama, and they both bowed. "Yes," they said. So again, I'm thinking of that essential question because I can ask and answer questions. How do people from different cultures contribute to a community? Well, this family who has a culture from the Japanese heritage or Japanese culture can contribute to their community by helping plant a garden because they learned how to plant gardens from their Japanese culture. This is a very important event in the order of the text or the sequence of the text. Let's go back to our graphic organizer and record these details. So we identified our first event in the sequence of our text or the order of our text, that last spring, Kikusato and her family moved to the city of Portland, Oregon. They had no yard, so they made an indoor garden. Then Kiku's friend, notice how we're using the character's name, even when we're sequencing events, Jill and her mother came over. They admired the indoor garden Kiku's parents made. So this garden that they created connects to our next event. Important events will connect to each other. And notice how we're using a sequence word, then. Then Kiku's parents agreed to help Jill's mother with a community project. they would help create a garden on a small piece of land. So notice in the sequence of events, each event connects to this garden. And these details answer our essential question: how do people from different cultures contribute to a community? Let's read on to see what important event, comes next in our sequence. A garden grows. First, we had a meeting with the community. All right, there's a sequence word. That's the author signaling to us that this might be an important event in our order of the text or sequence of the text. Everyone agreed to contribute. Some people brought seeds, tools, and dirt. Then the next day, we met and started our garden. There are some more signal words. Try and see if you can identify those signal words. Let's check your thinking. Then, the next day. And look at our heading, a garden grows. Well, first the community had a meeting, and then the next day they started their garden. That connects to a garden grows. It also connects to Kiku Sato's family starting a garden in their city home, her friend mother admiring their garden. Then the family said they could help plant a garden with the community. Now the community is getting together to help the idea come along. Papa built long open boxes. Next, we fill them with dirt. The tallest box went close to the back wall. There's another sequence word. Next. This signals to us that this might be connected to our important event. We filled them with dirt. So the author or the narrator, Kiku Sato, is telling us how they're making their garden. The boxes got shorter and shorter. The shortest box was in the front. All the plants will get sunlight without making shade for the others, Mama said. Then we used round flat stones to make a rock path. There's another sequence word that signals to me as a reader, hey reader, pause. This is important. This is an important sequence of our events. Papa said that in Japan, stones are an important part of a garden. Finally, we planted the seeds. So they prepared their garden area and they're finally planting those seeds. Jill and I worked in the garden all summer. Our community grew many different vegetables. At the end of the summer, there's a sequence. End of the summer tells us we're reaching the last events of our sequence. We started in spring, and now we must have gone through fall and winter and spring again, and now it's the end of summer. We picked enough to have a cookout. Mama brought a big pot of miso and vegetable stew. Everyone thanked Mama and Papa for their help. They brought a bit of Japan to Portland. I was so proud. They have some pictures with labels, Papa building boxes, Jill and I planting seeds. Look what we picked. Here's the final sequence of events. They have produce from their garden that they grew. Now we'll go back to our graphic organizer and record our last sequence of events. In order to record this last sequence in our event, I'm going to use a sequence word. After that, the community met and started the garden. We have now together, after reading Room to Grow, we have asked and answered questions. How do people from different cultures contribute to a community? Well, they use what they know from their culture, like the Japanese culture, to help communities become better versions of themselves. And in Room to Grow, the family from Japan helped the community in Portland, Oregon, create a garden in a small area. We also were able to identify the sequence of events in this text. We used signal words like last spring, first, next, then, finally, and we use those signal words to help us when we were recording our important events on our graphic organizer in sequence. All right, third graders, you got this. Now it's your turn when you're reading Judy Baca. I cannot wait to see what you record to learn with you. Bye.